Welcome to Strip Cover, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion. A poetry discussion which will take place in two separate playlists here on the channel. The number one playlist obviously being the poetry discussion playlist, but the number two playlist being the National Poetry Month 2021 playlist. I will be doing a poetry discussion every day in the month of April 2021. Mondays are for Langston Hughes, Tuesdays are for Sylvia Plath, Wednesdays for Charles Bukowski, Thursdays for Emily Dickinson, Fridays for Charles Bukowski again, Saturday for Robert Frost, and Sundays are a sort of a toss-up day where I will be discussing different random poets. But this poetry discussion comes to us, of course, from Sylvia Plath. It is of Lady Lazarus, and Lady Lazarus reads as such. I have done it again. 1 year in every 10 I manage it. A sort of walking miracle, my skin bright as a Nazi lampshade, my right foot a paperweight, my face a featureless, fine Jew linen. Peel off the napkin, oh my enemy, do I terrify? The nose, the eye pits, the full set of teeth, the sour breath will vanish in a day. Soon the flesh will cave 8 will be at home on me. And I, a smiling woman, I am only 30, and like the cat I have 9 times to die. This was number 3. What a trash to annihilate each decade. What a million filaments the peanut-crunching crowd shoves in to see them unwrap me hand and foot, the big strip tease. Gentlemen, ladies, these are my hands, my knees. I may be skin and bone, nevertheless I am the same identical woman. The first time it happened I was 10. It was an accident. The second time I meant to last it out and not come back at all. I rocked shut as a seashell. They had to call and pick the worms off me like sticky pearls. Dying is an art, like everything else. I do it exceptionally well. I do it so it feels like hell. I do it so it feels real. I guess you could say I've a call. It's easy enough to do it in a cell. It's easy enough to do it and stay put. It's the theatrical comeback in broad day. To the same place, the same face, the same brute, amused shout. A miracle that knocks me out. There is a charge for the eyeing of my scars. There is a charge for the hearing of my heart. It really goes. And there is a charge, a very large charge, for a word or a touch or a bit of blood. Or a piece of my hair or my clothes. So, Herr Doctor, so, Herr Enemy. I am your opus. I am your valuable. The pure gold baby that melts to a shriek. I turn and burn. Do not think I underestimate your great concern. Ash, ash. You poke and stir flesh, bone. There is nothing else. There is nothing there. A cake of soap, a wedding ring, a gold filling. Herr God, Herr Lucifer, beware, beware. Out of the ash I will rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air. So this poem always strikes me as if Emily Dickinson and Charles Bukowski, or Chuck Palahniuk, had a baby. It is as effervescent, it is as ethereal as Emily Dickinson, but it is as gritty, and it has that same sense of humor as Chuck Palahniuk does. And it's a poem that every time I read it, it's one of those weird it's one of those weird things where every time I read it, I notice something a little bit different, and I realize that that must be because each time I read it, I focus on something else. There is something else which catches my eye. There is something else which my mind lingers on while my eyes scan the rest of the poem. Um, and I think, so the way that I think Sylvia Plath had managed that is first, the entire time, you're concentrated on the fact, she means suicide, right? That's what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about suicide, right? We're talking about death by one's own hand, right? Certainly we're talking about death, but the first time was an accident, she says. After that, it's supposed to be more final. It's supposed to be more decisive. The second thing that we have to notice is the imagery bright as a Nazi lampshade. When you slap someone in the face with that, it's hard to recover. It's hard to come back from that. So I think that what happens is when you introduce the idea as an idea as big as suicide, with a visual as stark as Nazi lampshade, and then you continue to pepper in strong images and wording such as, with what a million filaments the peanut crunching crowd shoves in to see. I guarantee you those words have never appeared that close in the English language before or since Sylvia Plath. To annihilate each decade, what a million filaments the peanut crunching crowd shoves in to see. So what you've got is you've got this big overarching idea, the idea of suicide. You've got the hooks coming in, which are the bright as a Nazi lampshade. My face a featureless, fine Jew linen. The nose, the eye pits, the full set of teeth. Those are all images which are just thrown at you very fast, very quick in succession. And then you have the language all working in such correspondence that it's almost impossible to take everything in on any one reading. In that way, in the fact that it's so hard to digest all at once, I want to hold it in league with something like Fight Club. But the reason that happens in Fight Club is that Chuck Palahniuk throws so much shit in there that you're never going to be able to focus everywhere at once. And you can see that in his other novels because he realized, oh, well, that's a strategy. I'm just going to start chucking shit in there. And in the rest of his novels, at least to my reading, none of it ever really lands. So it's not like it's an easy thing to pull off, but here we have one poem. I mean, this has got to be, I didn't count them, but this has to be maybe 150 words. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're looking at 4 to 5 words per line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12. Yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at 150 words here. You're probably looking at about 150 words here. And for it to be, I mean, this is, here, let me see. I'm going to connect to the internet real quick. I hate Spectrum. If you have Spectrum, please let them know. I hate them. I am going to real quick Google search Sylvia Plath. Okay, so no individual poems come up. The bell jar, obviously, bell jar comes up. I'm gonna poem. Guarantee, yeah, Daddy, then Lady Lazarus. So Daddy's the big one, the one for which I believe Sylvia Plath is most well known, but obviously Lady Lazarus is second. I think for the idea of suicide, or at least death, to be presented in such a way that it is your second most popular poem, you've got to do some real heavy lifting, especially in today's marshmallow clouds and bullshit world, for this to be the one that people keep on reading. In today's world where everyone gets a trophy, in today's world where everyone got a trophy when they were a kid, so their kids ought to get it. For this rough a poem to be the one that still gets read, you've got to have done some work. And I think that a lot of the things we talked about here are exactly why this poem is as popular as it is. But when you take a step back from that, you take a step back from the popularity. Because popularity does not necessarily lend itself to rereadability, right? Who watched Schindler's List twice? Once was probably enough. Still, if you take movies seriously, you probably own a copy of it, right? Something like that. I think this poem has more rereadability than something like Schindler's List has rewatchability, because of the very fact that you get lost in this poem. You get lost trying to figure out what each of these images means to the poem's greater concept, and why the image was picked. And you have to reflect back on the title, Lady Lazarus. And there's something funny about, so one of the reasons that I compared it to Emily Dickinson and Chuck Palahniuk is this underlying sense of humor here. There's something playful going on in these words. This isn't all doom and gloom. This is black humor, right? This is dark humor. She spends all of this time bright as a Nazi lampshade. Surely you get that image. Surely you understand what that means. That is a reference to Jewish people. My face a featureless fine Jew linen. Okay, so we have this concept of a Jewish woman who keeps rising from the dead, who dies and is risen. But there's something about Lazarus, isn't there? Let's see if I'm still connected. Oh, I am unconnected. Okay, so anyway, doesn't really matter. Didn't need the direct quotes. By whom was Lazarus raised from the dead? Jesus Christ. If Lazarus was raised from the dead by Jesus Christ, being the Christ, would kind of necessitate that a woman no longer be a Jew, wouldn't it? Because Christianity was formed by the Christ appearing, living, being sacrificed. But if he was the Christ, he was the continuation of the Jewish lineage. Meaning that all Jews who were Jews, if Jesus was the Christ, would be Christians. It's in their very religion. Jesus was the one who was foretold. So it is that sort of, it's not a wink and a nod humor. It's not even just dark humor. It's not even just black humor. It is sort of a tempting of the fate humor that runs through this poem. And you sort of get it here at the end. Herr God, Herr Lucifer, beware, beware. Out of the ash I rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air. Why is that last part necessary, really? Because we have emphasized lady in the title. Lady Lazarus belonging, in those old world terms, to Lazarus. Lazarus raised by Jesus. Jesus was a fella. Lazarus was a fella. Herr God presented as a fella. Lucifer presented as a fella. Well, our speaker here eats fellas like air. So it is really sort of a tempting, come on, you want to do this? We can do this type of thing that is going on in this poem, especially with the sense of humor involved. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. I hope to see you tomorrow for a Bukowski poetry discussion, and the rest of the month for the rest of the poetry discussions that we'll be doing to celebrate National Poetry Month 2021.